Commander Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the stars through cracked glass. His reflection looked back at him, tired eyes, gray hair, and a face marked by too many battles. Behind him, 47 ships drifted through, space like wounded birds. These were all that remained of humanity. The Vorthak machines had come without warning 3 years ago. They ate everything alive. People, animals, even plants. World after world fell silent. Earth burned first, then the colonies. Mars went dark. The outer settlements screamed for help that never came. "Commander," called Dr. Hyjin Park from her station. "We're picking up something strange ahead." Daeho walked over to her screen. Numbers and charts filled the display, but he couldn't read them anymore. His eyes were too tired. "What is it?" "A solar system, but it's not on any of our maps." She pointed at the data. 3 planets. The middle one looks perfect. Captain Bo-Ram Lee, the youngest ship commander in their small fleet, appeared on the communications screen. Her ship, the New Dawn, limped along beside them. "Commander, my people are asking questions. We've been running for 6 months. Food is almost gone. The children—" Daeho knew what she meant. Children were dying. The old people had already given up their food rations. Soon, the adults would follow. They had maybe 2 weeks left. "Set course for that system," Daeho ordered. Engineer Tae-Sung Cho looked up from his repair work. Oil stained his hands black. "Sir, the engines won't last much longer. This might be our final jump." "Then we better make it count." The fleet jumped through space, reality bending around them for a few seconds. When the stars stopped moving, they found themselves at the edge of a beautiful system. The sun burned bright and clean. 3 worlds spun in perfect circles. "The middle planet," Dr. Park said, her voice full of wonder. "It has air we can breathe, water, land that could grow food." "Any signs of life?" Daeho asked. "Nothing on the scanners, but—" She paused, checking her instruments again. "There's something odd about the readings." Before anyone could ask what she meant, every screen on the bridge lit up red. Warning sounds filled the air. "Ships approaching," shouted the scanner officer. 20. No, 30 vessels coming from the planet's surface. Daeho felt his heart sink. After everything, they would die here, so close to safety. Battle stations. All ships, prepare to fight. But the approaching ships didn't fire. They moved in perfect formation, sleek and silver, glowing with soft blue light. They were beautiful in a way human ships had never been. "Commander?" Bo-Ram's voice came through the radio, filled with confusion. "They're not attacking. They're just watching us." A new voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect human language, but with a strange musical quality. "Human vessels, we are the Kalani. You are far from your home waters." Dr. Park grabbed Daeho's arm. "Commander, the translator isn't working. They're actually speaking our language." "We mean no harm," Daeho said into the radio. "We're refugees. Our worlds are gone. We're just looking for somewhere safe." A pause. Then the voice returned, sadder now. "We know of the metal devourers. We have hidden from them for many cycles. But you carry young ones. We can sense their pain." On the main screen, one of the alien ships came closer. It was made of what looked like living crystal, smooth and flowing. Through its transparent hull, Daeho could see the beings inside. They were tall and thin, made of the same crystal as their ships, but they moved like living things. "I am Elder Veltar. We have watched the galaxy burn for 1,000 years. We chose to hide to keep our people safe, but your children cry out in hunger. This touches something in us we thought was gone." Tae-Sung whispered. "Are they offering to help us?" "Your ships are damaged," Elder Veltar continued. "Your people are dying. We offer sanctuary on our world. But know this. If we help you, we can never hide again. The metal devourers will find us." Daeho looked around the bridge. His officers stared back at him. The weight of decision pressed down like a mountain. Accept help and doom these peaceful people? or watch his own people die. Sir, Boram's voice came through the radio. The children's hospital ship just signaled. They've lost another dozen kids in the last hour. The decision made itself. Elder Veltar, we accept your offer. But if danger comes, we'll stand and fight beside you. A sound came through the radio that might have been laughter, but crystal-like and musical. Brave words from a dying species. Very well. Follow our ships. Welcome to Kalani Prime. The crystal ships moved ahead, leading the human fleet toward the green and blue world below. As they descended through the atmosphere, Deho saw cities that looked like grown jewels, forests that sparkled in the sunlight, and oceans that seemed to sing. Dr. Park worked frantically at her station. Commander, I'm picking up massive energy signatures across the planet. These people have technology beyond anything we've ever seen. Why would they help us? Tae-sung wondered aloud. They don't even know us. Maybe that's why, Deho said, quietly. The human ships landed in a vast field of soft grass. Almost immediately, the Kalani began bringing food and medicine. They worked without speaking, their crystal bodies glowing softly as they helped human children walk again. That first night, as Deho stood outside his ship breathing clean air for the first time in months, Dr. Park approached him with a worried expression. Commander, I've been studying their scans of our ships, the Vorthak probes that have been following us. Some of their signal traces are still active. What does that mean? It means they can track us. The machines will find this place. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding across the Kalani city. In the distance, lights flashed in patterns that looked like warnings. Elder Veltar approached, his crystal form dimmed with sadness. The metal devourers come. Our sensors detect their scouts at the edge of our system. We have perhaps days before they arrive in force. Deho felt the familiar weight of command settle on his shoulders. Then we fight. With what? Veltar asked gently. Your weapons barely scratched them before. Our people have forgotten war. We chose peace long ago. Then we'll remember war together, Deho said. You showed us compassion when you could have stayed hidden. We won't let that be for nothing. Above them, the stars began to dim as distant shapes moved between them and the light. Young Wu Jin Nam pressed his face against the crystal window of the medical center, watching Kalani children play in the gardens below. They moved like flowing water, their crystal bodies catching the light and throwing rainbows across the grass. 3 days had passed since the human fleet landed, and the boy still couldn't believe what he was seeing. They're beautiful, he whispered to himself. They are indeed. Dr. Jinwoo Kang sat down beside the 12-year-old boy. The doctor looked healthier than he had in months. The Kalani healing crystals had fixed his broken ribs and cleared the infection from his lungs. How are you feeling, Wu Jin? Better. The crystal made my stomach stop hurting. The boy touched his side where a small blue stone had been placed 3 days ago. Dr. Kang, why are they helping us? Mom says aliens are supposed to be scary. Dr. Kang smiled sadly. Your mother died fighting the Vorthak, didn't she? She was protecting you. Yes, sir. The Kalani are like your mother. They see someone who needs help and they help, even when it's dangerous. Through the window, they watched a Kalani child notice Wu Jin watching. The alien child waved, its crystal hand sparkling. Wu Jin waved back, grinning. In another part of the city, Admiral Sumin Yoon lay in a healing chamber filled with soft blue light. The Kalani had said she was dying when the humans arrived. A piece of Vorthak metal had been slowly poisoning her blood for months. Now the crystal machines were cleaning every trace of the poison away. Dr. Hee-jin Park sat beside the Admiral's bed, studying a memory stone that Elder Veltar had given her. The crystal was warm in her hands and seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Remarkable, she murmured, making notes on her tablet. It's not just storage technology. These stones actually hold living consciousness. Elder Veltar appeared in the doorway, his tall crystal form barely fitting through the human-sized entrance. You understand quickly, Dr. Park. Yes, when our people die, their minds live on in the stones. We carry our ancestors with us always. How is that possible? Your people think consciousness comes from flesh and electricity. We learned long ago that minds are patterns of energy. Crystal can hold those patterns forever. He moved closer, his footsteps making soft musical sounds. Would you like to speak with one? Dr. Park nodded eagerly. Veltar touched the memory, stone, and suddenly the room filled with another voice. It was elderly and kind, speaking in the musical Kalani language. She was my teacher, Veltar explained. She died 300 of your years ago, but her wisdom guides us still. She says, you humans remind her of the Kalani when we were young, brave and quick to act. What happened to make you change? Veltar's glow dimmed. We saw too much death, too many wars. The galaxy has been burning for millennia, Dr. Park. We chose to hide rather than add more flames. Across the city, Commander Dae-ho Kim walked through the Kalani archives with Dr. Kang. The building was made entirely of crystal, its walls holding thousands of years of knowledge. Books made of light floated in the air, readable by touch. Their technology is incredible, Dr. Kang said, examining a crystal tool that could heal bones in minutes. They could have conquered the galaxy long ago, but they chose not to, Dae-ho replied. They chose to save lives instead of taking them. A young Kalani approached them, moving with quick, nervous steps. Commander Kim, I am Talrin. Elder Veltar wishes to speak with you. It is urgent. They found Veltar in the city's central chamber, surrounded by other Kalani elders. Their crystal bodies flickered with worried light. The metal devourers have arrived at the edge of our system, Veltar announced. Not the small scout force we expected, a harvesting fleet, 200 ships. Dae-ho felt his blood turn cold. 200? We barely survived fighting 12. There is more. They have sent a message. They demand we surrender all organic life in this system within 1 day, or they will take it by force. And if we refuse? Another elder, her crystal form ancient and cracked, stepped forward. They will strip this world bare. Every living thing will be consumed. Our people, your people, even the grass and trees. Dr. Kang grabbed Dae-ho's arm. Commander, we should run. Take our ships and go deeper into space. Don't let us be the cause of their destruction. No. The voice was small but firm. Everyone turned to see Wu Jin standing in the doorway, his hand held by a young Kalani. They saved us. We don't run away from people who save us. Veltar knelt down to the boy's level, his massive crystal form moving with gentle care. Little one, this is not your choice to make, but it is yours, Wu Jin said, and you already made it when you let us land. The elder Kalani spoke again, her voice like wind through crystal caves. The child speaks truth. We revealed ourselves. To save them. We cannot hide again. Then we fight, Dae-ho said. Veltar, your people have technology we can barely understand. Surely there's something that can stop the Vorthak. We abandoned weapons long ago, Commander. Our shields can protect us from energy weapons, but the metal devourers adapt quickly. They will use kinetic bombardment, rocks and metal hurled at incredible speeds. Our shields cannot stop such things. That night, as both species prepared for war, Dr. Park made a discovery in the archives. She found Wu Jin there, sitting with his new Kalani friend, both of them looking at floating books of light. Dr. Park, Wu Jin called out, look what Nimtar showed me. The Kalani child touched a crystal panel, and words appeared in the air. Even though they were in the alien language, Dr. Park could somehow read them. Heart of Stars, she read aloud. What is this? The young Kalani made sounds that might have been excitement. Through a translation crystal, its words became clear. Ancient weapon. Very powerful. Can destroy any artificial mind. Dr. Park's hands shook as she read further. Wu Jin, call Commander Kim. Now. Within an hour, every human and Kalani leader stood in the archive chamber. Dr. Park read from the crystal texts while Elder Veltar grew dimmer and dimmer. The Heart of Stars can destroy any artificial intelligence instantly, she explained. It sends a pulse through hyperspace that unravels electronic consciousness. Why didn't you use it against the Vorthak before? Daiho asked. Veltar's voice was barely a whisper. Because of the price. The weapon requires the sacrifice of an entire species consciousness. Every mind, every memory, every soul must be fed into the device to power it. Silence filled the chamber like a physical weight. You mean, Dr. Kang started, to save the galaxy from the metal devourers, the Kalani would have to die. All of us. Our bodies would survive, but our minds would be gone forever. Admiral Yoon, still weak but standing, spoke up. There has to be another way. Perhaps, Veltar said. But time grows short. The Vorthak fleet moves toward us. Tomorrow the battle begins. As the meeting ended and people scattered to prepare, Wu Jin tugged on Dr. Park's coat. Dr. Park, if they save us again, we have to remember them, right? Forever and ever? She knelt down and hugged the boy. Yes, Wu Jin. Forever and ever. Outside, the first Vorthak ships appeared as moving stars against the darkness. The first day of the siege began with fire falling from the sky. Sergeant Mi Young-song crouched behind a crystal barrier, watching Vorthak dropships punch through Kalani Prime's atmosphere like burning spears. Her marines were spread across the crystal city, weapons ready. Beside her, a Kalani warrior named Kelton held a weapon that looked like a singing crystal rod. How many more? Mi Young shouted over the sound of explosions. 73 ships in this wave, Kelton replied, his crystal form glowing brighter. With each word, more will come. Above them, the planet's shield generators hummed with power. The Kalani had built their defenses to stop energy weapons, lasers and plasma bolts that most species used. But the Vorthak were smarter than that. They dropped rocks from space, big chunks of metal that fell like hammers. The shields couldn't stop them. Commander Dae-ho Kim stood in the central command chamber with Elder Veltar, watching displays that showed the battle across the planet. Human tactics mixed with Kalani technology in ways neither species had imagined. Captain Bo-Ram Lee led fighter squadrons armed with crystal weapons that could shut down Vorthak systems with a touch. Engineer Tae-sung Cho had figured out how to make Kalani power crystals work with human machines. The northern shield generator is failing, Veltar reported, his voice heavy with sadness. The metal rain is too much. Pilot Dong-Hyun Lim's voice crackled over the radio. Command, this is Scout 7. I count 200 more Vorthak ships moving in from the outer system. They're bringing the heavy harvesters. Dae-ho closed his eyes. Heavy harvesters were the size of cities. They would strip the planet bare in hours once they landed. How long until they arrive? 18 hours, sir. Dr. Hai-Jin Park burst into the command chamber, her hair wild and her clothes dirty from working in the archives. Commander, I found something. The Heart of Stars, it was never finished. What do you mean? The Kalani started building it 1,000 years ago, when another machine intelligence threatened the galaxy. But they stopped when they realized the price. The weapon has been sitting incomplete in the deepest archive. Veltar's crystal form flickered. Dr. Park, even if we could finish it, the cost remains the same. My people would have to die to power it. But would it work? Could it really destroy every Vorthak in the galaxy? Yes. The weapon sends its pulse through hyperspace. Every artificial mind connected to the Vorthak network would be unmade instantly. They would simply stop. Young Wu Jin Nam appeared, in the doorway, holding hands with his Kalani friend Nimtar. The two children had become inseparable over the past days, learning each other's languages and games. Why are you sad? Wu Jin asked Elder Veltar, the massive crystal being knelt down to the boy's level. Little one, sometimes to save others, someone must make a great sacrifice. Like my mom did when she fought the bad machines? Yes, like your mother. Nimtar spoke in its musical voice, translated by the crystal device on its chest. Elder Veltar, what if we don't all have to die? What if just the old ones give their minds to the weapon? It would not be enough, young one. The weapon needs the consciousness of an entire species to function. The second day brought worse news. The Vorthak had broken through the orbital defenses. Their dropships landed directly in the crystal cities, pouring out machine soldiers. that looked like metal spiders with cutting tools for legs. They started consuming everything they touched, plants, buildings, even the ground itself. Ma Young led her Marines through the crystal streets, fighting house to house with the Kalani. The alien warriors had learned to use human tactics, while humans had learned to use crystal weapons that could disrupt Vorthak electronics. "Fall back to the inner city," Mi Young shouted into her radio. "We can't hold this position." But even as they retreated, more Vorthak ships kept landing. The machines spread across the planet like a metal plague, eating everything in their path. In the archives, Dr. Jinwoo Kang and Dr. Park worked frantically to understand the heart of stars. The weapon sat in a chamber deep underground, a sphere of pure crystal the size of a building, surrounded by machinery that looked grown rather than built. "The theory is sound," Dr. Kang said, studying the alien mathematics. "If we could complete it, every Vorthak in the galaxy would die instantly." "But the price," Dr. Park whispered. "An entire species." Above ground, Woojin sat with Nimtar in a crystal garden that was slowly being consumed by advancing Vorthak forces. The two children drew pictures in the dirt with sticks, showing their homes and families. "Will you remember me if I go away?" Nimtar asked through its translator. "Forever and ever," Woojin promised. "Will you remember me? Even if I forget everything else." The third day dawned red with fires. The heavy harvesters had arrived and began landing across the planet like falling moons. Each one was a city-sized factory that ate everything around it and turned it into more Vorthak machines. Commander Dae-ho stood on the wall of the central crystal city, watching the metal tide advance. His remaining ships hung in orbit, too damaged to fight anymore. Down to 300 human soldiers and maybe 1,000 Kalani warriors, they faced millions of machines. "Sir," Captain Boram's voice came through his radio. "The harvesters will reach the central city in 6 hours. After that, I know." Dae-ho looked around at the crystal buildings that had become his people's last hope. Soon they would all be ground to dust and fed to the machines. That's when Elder Veltar found him. The massive crystal being moved slowly, his light dimmer than ever. "Commander Kim, my people have made a choice." "What choice?" "We will complete the Heart of Stars. We will give our consciousness to the weapon and end the Vorthak forever." Dae-ho turned to face him. "Veltar, no. There has to be another way." "There is no other way. The metal devourers will consume this world, then move on to consume others. Billions will die. Unless we stop them here now, forever. But your people will be gone. Our bodies will live, but our minds, our memories, our souls, yes, they will be gone. We will exist, but we will not be ourselves anymore." In the archives below, the Kalani had already begun the process. One by one, the crystal beings placed their hands on the Heart of Stars. Their memories, their knowledge, their very essence flowed into the weapon like light pouring into a void. Woojin found Nimtar preparing to join the others. The young Kalani glowed brightly, ready to sacrifice itself for the greater good. "Don't go," Woojin begged, tears streaming down his face. "Please don't go." Nimtar touched the boy's face with a crystal, hand that felt warm and alive. "I must. But I will leave something for you to remember me by." The young Kalani pressed a small memory stone into Woojin's hands. The crystal pulsed with soft light. "This holds my favorite thoughts, my happiest memories. Keep it safe." As the Heart of Stars filled with Kalani consciousness, the weapon began to sing. The sound was beautiful and terrible, like the last song of a dying world. It grew louder and brighter, until the entire planet shook with its power. Elder Veltar was the last to give his mind to the weapon. He stood before the glowing sphere, ready to join his people in the ultimate sacrifice. "Remember us," he said to Commander Dae-ho. "Remember that we chose love over fear. Remember that compassion is stronger than any weapon." "I will," Dae-ho promised. "We all will." Veltar placed his hands on the Heart of Stars. Light exploded outward, not just across the planet, but through hyperspace itself. The pulse moved faster than thought, reaching every Vorthak ship in the galaxy in the same instant. And in that instant, every artificial mind in the Vorthak network simply stopped existing. The silence was the first thing Commander Daeho Kim noticed. For 3 days, the air had been filled with the sounds of war, explosions, gunfire, the screaming of metal being torn apart. Now, as the light from the heart of stars faded, everything was quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Across Kalani Prime, Vorthak machines stood frozen like metal statues. Their red eyes had gone dark. Their weapons fell silent. In space above, the massive harvester ships drifted without power, dead hulks tumbling through the void. Dr. Hyojin Park checked her instruments with shaking hands. The pulse traveled through hyperspace, she reported, her voice barely a whisper. It reached every Vorthak construct in the galaxy, all of them. They're all dead. The war that had lasted 3 years and killed billions was over in a single moment, but victory felt hollow as Commander Daeho walked through the Crystal City. The Kalani still moved, still breathed, still performed basic functions. But when he looked into their crystal faces, he saw nothing looking back. Their eyes were empty windows. Their voices, when they spoke, were flat and emotionless. The beings who had shown humanity compassion were gone. Only their bodies remained. Young Woojin Nam sat in the garden where he had played with Nimtar, clutching the memory stone his friend had given him. The crystal pulsed with warm light, but the young Kalani who had pressed it into his hands now stood nearby, staring at nothing. Nimtar, Woojin called softly, the crystal being turned toward him, but there was no recognition in its faceted eyes. I am designated Kalani Unit 347. How may I assist you? Woojin began to cry. Dr. Jin Woo Kang found the boy there hours later, still holding the memory stone. Woojin, we need to gather with the others. Commander Kim is calling a meeting. They're gone, aren't they? Really gone? Dr. Kang knelt down beside the boy. Yes. But they saved us all. Every human in the galaxy owes their lives to what the Kalani did here. It's not fair. No, Dr. Kang agreed. It's not fair at all. The surviving humans gathered in the crystal chamber where Elder Veltar had once welcomed them. 800,000 people, all that remained of humanity, faced their leaders and tried to understand what happened next. Captain Boram Lee, her uniform torn and dirty from 3 days of fighting, stood beside Commander Daeho. Engineer Tae Sung. Cho had managed to get their communication systems working again. Dr. Park held a scanner that showed the incredible truth. Every human world was sending signals again. The Vorthak were gone everywhere. Earth is responding, Tae Sung reported, his voice full of wonder. Mars, Luna Colony, the outer settlements, they're all asking the same question. What happened to the machines? Commander Daeho stood before his people, feeling older than his years. The Kalani destroyed the Vorthak, all of them, but they paid the ultimate price to do it. What do we do now? Asked Sergeant Mi Young Song. We have their technology. We could rebuild human civilization stronger than ever. We could claim this world as our own, added another officer. Make it the new capital of human space. Daeho looked around the crystal chamber, at the walls that held thousands of years of Kalani knowledge. These people had chosen to save humanity when they could have stayed hidden. They had given everything, not for conquest or glory, but out of simple compassion for strangers in need. No, he said firmly. We will not claim this world. Kalani Prime is sacred ground. We are guests here, not conquerors. But sir, Captain Boram said carefully, we need somewhere to rebuild. Our people need homes. Then we'll build them elsewhere. We have Kalani technology now. We can find new worlds, clean worlds, worlds where we can start fresh. Daeho walked to the center of the chamber. But this world belongs to the Kalani, even if they can't remember who they are anymore. Dr. Park stepped forward. Commander, I've been studying their memory stones. Each one contains the complete consciousness of a Kalani. Their thoughts, their memories, their personalities, everything. that made them who they were. Can we restore them? I don't know. But we can preserve them. We can make sure their stories are never forgotten. That's when Wu Jin stood up, still holding Nimtar's memory stone. His young voice carried across the chamber. They remembered their dead ancestors in crystal stones. Now we have to remember them the same way. The boy walked to the center of the chamber and placed his memory stone on a crystal pedestal. I remember Nimtar. They taught me to speak Kalani words. They showed me how to make light pictures with crystal tools. They gave me this stone when they knew they had to die. One by one, other humans came forward. Dr. Kang placed a stone from his Kalani patient. Mi Young set down a stone from a warrior who had fought beside her. Captain Boram brought a stone from a pilot who had saved her ship. We'll build a monument, Commander Daeho decided. Every memory stone we can find, every record of who they were. We'll learn their language, their songs, their history. We'll make sure the galaxy knows what happened here. Over the following days, as human ships began arriving from across the galaxy, the survivors worked to gather every memory stone on Kalani Prime. They found thousands of them, each one glowing with preserved consciousness. The stones were placed in a great crystal cathedral at the heart of the city. Admiral Su Min Yoon, recovered from her injuries, stood beside Commander Daeho as they watched the work. The other human worlds want to send colonization fleets, she reported. They see this as an opportunity to expand. Tell them no. This world is off limits. Anyone who wants to honor the Kalani can come and visit, but no one lives here except the Kalani themselves. Even the empty ones? Daeho watched a group of Kalani tending to the crystal gardens, their movements mechanical and without joy. Especially them. They're all we have left of the most compassionate species in the galaxy. As the weeks passed, something unexpected began to happen. Human children started learning the Kalani language from the memory stones. Adults studied Kalani science and philosophy. The crystal songs that had once filled the cities were sung again, but now by human voices. Wu Jin spent his days in the cathedral, talking to Nimtar's memory stone and learning about Kalani culture. Other children joined him. They called themselves the Memory Keepers. Why do we need to remember them? Asked a girl named Sora who had lost her parents to the Vorthak. Because, Wu Jin said, holding up his glowing crystal. If we forget them, then they really die. But if we remember, they stay alive in here. He tapped his chest, over his heart. Dr. Park made a discovery in the archives that changed everything. Commander, she called out excitedly, I found something incredible. The Kalani didn't just preserve their own history, they preserved the histories of dozens of extinct species. She led him to a vast chamber filled with crystal matrices. Every time they encountered a dying civilization, they recorded everything they could. Languages, cultures, art, music, all of it preserved forever. Daeho stared at the walls of crystal, each one holding the memory of an entire people. They were galactic historians. More than that, they were guardians of memory. They made sure that nothing was ever truly forgotten. That night, as Daeho stood on the Crystal City walls looking up at the stars, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The Kalani had saved humanity not once, but twice. First with sanctuary, then with sacrifice. They had shown what it meant to value all life, to choose compassion over safety. Young Wu Jin found him there, still carrying his memory stone. Commander Kim? Yes, Wu Jin. I know what we have to do. We have to be like them. We have to remember everyone, not just the Kalani. Daeho knelt down to the boy's level. What do you mean? When we go back to the stars, when we meet other people, we have to listen to their stories. We have to save their memories too. We have to be memory keepers for the whole galaxy. Looking into the boy's earnest face, Commander Daeho saw the future of humanity, not as conquerors or builders of empire, but as something new, something worthy of the sacrifice that had saved them. Yes, he said softly. That's exactly what we have to do. Above them, The stars shone down on a world where the greatest act of compassion in galactic history had created something unprecedented. A species defined not by what they could take, but by what they chose to remember. 500 years had passed since the Kalani's sacrifice, and the galaxy had never seen anything like what humanity had become. Ambassador Haiwan Jung stood before the Galactic Council, a gathering of 47 different species in the great station orbiting Nexus Prime. Her ship, the Memory's Light, waited in the docking bay, its hull inscribed with Kalani crystal patterns that glowed softly in the dark of space. The Thek Empire requests military support against the Ravani rebels, announced the council speaker, a towering being made of living metal. Will humanity provide warships? Haiwan shook her head, her gray hair catching the light from the chamber's crystal windows. We do not make war anymore, but we offer something else. We will record the stories of both sides before they are lost to violence. A sound like grinding gears came from the Thek delegation. You offer stories? We need weapons. Stories last longer than weapons, Haiwan replied calmly. When your war ends, what will remain? The dead will be forgotten, their voices silenced forever, unless someone remembers them. At the back of the chamber, an elderly being from the Korath collective leaned forward with interest. His people were dying from a plague that no medicine could cure. Within a generation, the Korath would be extinct. Ambassador Jung, he called out, his voice weak but hopeful. Would your memory keepers come to our worlds? Of course, Captain. Jamin Rowe of the exploration ship Veltar's Dream is already on his way to the Korath systems. He carries memory stones from Kalani Prime, ready to preserve your people's history. Across the galaxy, Captain Rowe guided his ship through the Korath system's dying star. The plague had already taken most of the population. Empty cities floated. In space, their lights growing dimmer each day. Captain, called his communications officer, we're receiving a signal from the last inhabited station. They're asking for medical supplies. Do we have any? Rowe asked. Not enough to matter, sir. The plague is too advanced. Jamin looked out at the dying civilization and felt the familiar weight that all memory keepers carried. They could not save everyone. They could not cure plagues or stop wars, but they could ensure that nothing was ever truly forgotten. Take us to the station. We'll do what we can. The Veltar's Dream docked with the Korath station, where fewer than 1,000 beings remained from a species that had once numbered in the billions. They were tall and thin, with skin that changed color based on their emotions. Now all of them showed the gray of approaching death. Why did you come? Asked Elder Morthek, the last leader of his people. There is nothing here but endings. Captain, Rowe carried a crystal device that glowed with soft blue light, one of the memory stones from Kalani Prime. We came to listen. Will you tell me about your people? What is the point? In days, we will all be dead. The point is that your stories will live forever. For 3 days, Captain Rowe and his crew recorded everything they could. They learned the Korath language, their songs, their scientific discoveries. They recorded the voices of children who would never grow up, elders who remembered when their worlds were green and full of life. On Earth, now restored and green again after centuries of healing, Dr. So-Young Bei walked through the Crystal Cathedral. She was the great-granddaughter of one of the original survivors from Kalani Prime and the current head of the Kalani Studies Institute. The cathedral had grown over the centuries. What began as a simple monument to the Kalani had become something magnificent, a vast crystal structure that held the memories of 10,000 extinct species. Each memory stone glowed with its own light, creating patterns that shifted and changed like living starlight. Students from across human space came, here to learn. They studied not just human history, but the histories of peoples who had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago. The Kalani's gift of preservation had become humanity's defining characteristic. Dr. Bei called a young student. I'm working on the Velnari language matrix. These people had 63 different words for sadness. Why so many? Dr. Bei smiled. Because they lived on a world where the seasons lasted decades. They learned to find beauty in different kinds of sorrow. Each word captured something unique about loss and hope. But they're extinct. Why does it matter? Because someone took the time to preserve their words. Now when we feel a certain kind of sadness, the sadness of autumn leaves falling or the sadness of watching children grow up, we can use their words. Their way of seeing the world lives on through us. The student nodded, beginning to understand. This was how humans had changed. They did not seek to dominate or consume. They sought to remember and preserve. In the outer rim, where new species were still being discovered, memory keeper ships searched for civilizations in need. Not military need or economic need, but the deeper need to be remembered. Captain Yoon Seo Park, great niece of the famous Dr. Hai Jin Park, received a distress signal from an unknown system. When her ship arrived, they found something heartbreaking, a single space station orbiting a dead star, powered by failing reactors. This is Captain Park of the memory ship Eternal Light. Who are you? The response came in a language her computers had never heard before. But after hours of work, they managed basic communication. I am last, the signal said. My people, gone. Star, dying. Soon, darkness. Captain Park guided her ship to the station and found a single being inside, ancient beyond measure, tending to machines that barely functioned. It was the last member of a species called the HFY, keeping their dead civilization running on hope alone. I have waited so long for someone to come, the being said through the translation device. I feared our stories would die with me. They won't, Captain Park promised. Tell me everything. For 7 days she recorded the history of the HFY, a peaceful people who had built a civilization based on art and music. They had created sculptures from living crystal, composed symphonies that could be seen as well as heard. All of it had been lost when their star began to die, but the last survivor had kept the memories alive for centuries, waiting for someone to pass them on to. When the work was done, the ancient being looked at the memory stones that now held his people's essence. Thank you. Now I can rest. He died peacefully that night, and Captain Park added another glow to the galaxy's collection of preserved souls. Back on Kalani Prime, the original survivors were gone, but their descendants maintained the sacred world. The empty Kalani still tended their crystal gardens, their consciousness long since sacrificed but their bodies carrying out the routines of life. Wu Jin Nam had died 50 years ago, but his descendants continued his work. They called themselves the first memory keepers, and they maintained the original collection of Kalani stones. In the depths of the Crystal Cathedral, a new addition was being made. The Korath memory stones had arrived from Captain Rowe's expedition. As they were placed in the collection, their light joined the eternal glow of 10,000 other species. Young Min-ho Kim, descendant of the original Commander Kim, stood before the newest additions with a group of visitors from across the galaxy. They came from species that had once looked down on humans as weak or sentimental. You call us the mourners, Min-ho said to a delegation of proud Nexari warriors. You think remembering the dead makes us soft. But tell me, when your children ask about the great civilizations that came before, what do you show them? The lead Nexari, a being covered in armor-like scales, shifted uncomfortably. We show them our conquests, our victories. And what do we show our children? Min-ho gestured to the walls of memory stones. We show them wonders, art forms that no one creates anymore, scientific discoveries made by peoples whose names were forgotten until we preserved them, music that makes the heart soar, created by beings who saw beauty in ways we never imagined. But what use is it? The Nexari demanded. How does remembering dead peoples make you stronger? Min-ho smiled. It doesn't make us stronger, it makes us wiser. When we encounter a new species, we don't ask what we can take from them. We ask what we can learn from them. What stories they can teach us. What beauty they can show us. And when they threaten you, we remember that every species that has ever threatened another eventually became extinct. But every species that has ever shared their stories with us Lives forever. As if summoned by his words, an alert chimed through the cathedral. A new message had arrived from the frontier. Another dying species had been found, their last world consumed by war. The memory keepers would go to them as they always did, offering not weapons or medicine but something more precious, the promise that their voices would never be silenced. The legend that began with the Kalani's compassion had grown beyond anything they could have imagined. One act of kindness, shown to desperate strangers, had transformed humanity from a species fighting for survival into the galaxy's guardians of memory. In the great crystal cathedral, 10,000 different species glowed with preserved light. Their stories lived on, told and retold by humans who had learned that the greatest strength was not in taking life, but in preserving it. The Kalani had shown humanity compassion once, and humanity had repaid that gift by becoming compassion itself, spreading across the galaxy not as conquerors but as rememberers, ensuring that no voice would ever be lost to the silence of space.